Good evening, and thank you for tuning to Lewis University Television Network. Today is Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. I'm Brandon Najera.
And I'm Christian Kluber.
Tonight, Donald Trump standing firm on the demolition of the White House East Wing to make room for his new ballroom. Also tonight, millions of Americans are on edge as access to food stamps and WIC benefits may end as the government shutdown carries on. Then, Russian drones plunging into the Ukrainian darkness, what this means for the war in Ukraine, and how President Trump is standing up to Russian President Vladimir Putin. First, tonight, the East Wing of the White House has been demolished to clear the way for the construction of a $300 million White House ballroom. The demolition sparked criticism from architectural and preservation groups. An excavator was first spotted on Monday, tearing down portions of the East Wing to clear space where President Trump is building a new ballroom that will cost $300 million. Renderings provided by the White House depict a vast space with gold and crystal chandeliers, gilded Corinthian columns, and a covered ceiling with gold inlay, gold floor, lamps, and a checkered marble floor. GOP Senator Thomas Tillis of North Carolina noting the, quote, poor timing of the White House renovations considering the government shutdown as the Senate is still in the works, reevaluating the economy.
Millions of Americans may soon lose access to food stamps in November if the government shutdown continues. Officials say there are not enough federal dollars left over to pay out the full SNAP and WIC benefits, which provide financial assistance to women, infants, and children. This month's benefits were sent out in September before the shutdown began. But if Congress doesn't pass a new spending plan by November 1st or the Trump administration doesn't step in to find additional funds, many families could lose some or even all of their benefits. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says SNAP has about $1 billion in a contingency fund, but November SNAP benefits are expected to be a total of around $8 billion. The other federally funded program impacted the WIC. More than 6 million families rely on the WIC. With November around the corner, there's a little sign of a shutdown, which will end anytime soon.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the U.S. military conducted a lethal strike against a boat in the Eastern Pacific on Tuesday. In a social media post Wednesday, Hegseth says the strike killed both people on board. The strike is the 8th known strike by the military on an alleged drug smuggling vessel since early September. It also appears to mark an expansion of the military campaign since the previous strikes targeted boats in the Caribbean Sea. Hegseth says the boat was being operated by a designated terrorist organization and was traveling along a known drug trafficking transit route. Hegseth also says no U.S. forces were hurt in the strike.
The Trump administration has imposed sanctions on Russia's two largest oil companies as efforts to end the war in Ukraine have stalled. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called on Russian President Vladimir Putin to agree to immediate ceasefire. He added the Treasury Department is prepared to take action if necessary. The sanctions also hit almost 36 subsidiaries of the two companies. Bessent had previewed the sanctions earlier Wednesday, calling them one of the largest. He also noted Trump's disappointment with Putin and the state of the talks to end the war. Wednesday, Trump announced he canceled an anticipated meeting with Putin.
Opening statements were delivered and witnesses testified on day 3 of the trial of former sheriff's deputy charged with killing Sonia Massey. Massey was killed in Springfield, Illinois after she called 911 about a possible prowler in July 2024. Sangamon County Sheriff's Deputy Sean Grayson shot Massey while yelling for her to put down a pot of what he thought was boiling water. Graphic video of the incident was caught on police body cam. Grayson has pleaded not guilty to 3 murder charges. His attorney claimed he acted in self-defense. The trial was moved to Peoria from Springfield because of the pre-trial publicity. Grayson could get between 45 years and life in prison if convicted. Up next, Ukraine on edge as Russian drones plunge into parts of Ukraine. That story and more after this.
It is a new day for jobs and careers, and the skills needed to compete are rapidly changing. This is why more students are choosing Lewis University. Lewis prepares you for emerging opportunities in some of the most highly sought-after fields. Higher education is the most crucial investment you can make in your future. Lewis provides you with a lasting education that will launch you towards success today and strong, growing careers of tomorrow. Begin an education that will pay dividends for a lifetime. Learn more at lewisu.edu.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
You know, it took 20 years and I got my third child who was 17 at the time. It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
For over 50 years, WLRA has been on air showcasing countless students. As the first all-digital college radio station, Lewis University students are given access to industry-leading equipment. Equipment that commercial stations utilize, equipment that creates, and equipment that brings radio to life.
I like WLRA because it gives me the opportunity to get experience with news broadcasting and working with radio.
Stop by De La Salle 210 or at WLRA Radio to get started on your radio career.
Swarms of Russian drones plunged parts of Ukraine into darkness. Russia has stepped up the drone attacks on power facilities as temperatures drop in Ukraine. There are signs that the Russian military is repeatedly hitting the same areas to aggravate the population's suffering. The northern regions of Chernihiv and Sumy have been in constant attacks over the past month. Hundreds of thousands of people in Chernihiv were without power or water on Tuesday after more than 50 drones and missiles targeted essential facilities overnight. 2 attack drones hit a heat supply facility and another energy installation. There was also a massive Russian attack on energy facilities in several regions, including Kiev on October 10th. Russia has developed a mix of drones and missiles in its attacks on energy infrastructure that sometimes overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses. Power is yet to be fully restored in the town of Shatska and surrounding area after the strikes 2 weeks ago.
An audacious daylight heist at the iconic Louvre Museum in Paris on Sunday has set off a manhunt by French authorities for the thieves. They made off with jewelry that's deemed to have priceless value, and they did it in just under 7 minutes. The Louvre Museum is due to reopen on Wednesday. According to French prosecutor, there's an estimated $102 million of stolen treasures. Some are calling it the heist of the century. It's one of the most high-profile robberies at the Louvre since Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa was stolen off the museum's walls in August of 1911. Police say the thieves entered the museum through a window and took items such as a diamond and sapphire jewelry set, a tiara, and an emerald necklace set among other treasures before fleeing on motorcycles. The robbers used a truck-mounted ladder to gain access to the Apollo Gallery, one of the most ornate rooms in the Louvre Museum. Investigators are looking closely at a blowtorch and an angle grinder found at the scene. Investigators don't have any solid leads, but have recovered one of the 2 scooters that the thieves used to get away, as well as a helmet.
Staunch conservative Sanaya Takichi won a preliminary vote to become Japan's first female prime minister on Tuesday, in a landmark moment for the historically patriarchal country where older men dominate both politics and workspaces. Takichi will step into the role as Japan faces mounting economic woes and deadlocked politics, just days before the U.S. President Donald Trump is scheduled to visit. She was elected prime minister by members of the parliament, but now she'll have to answer to 120 million Japanese. One of her challenges will be tackling the high price of goods, for example, the price of rice. A staple food in Japan has almost doubled in the last year.
At least 4 people were injured after a large fire broke out in a high-rise building in central Hong Kong. Videos and pictures shared on social media showed dramatic scenes of scaffolding on fire while heavy black smoke billowed from the tower. 58 people were successfully evacuated, and emergency services were deployed to control the 3-alarm fire at China Chem Tower in the city's central business district. Firefighters managed to extinguish the blaze after more than 4 hours.
The Bogota Superior Court overturned former Colombian President Alvaro Uribe Vélez's 12-year house arrest sentence for witness tampering and fraud. The court found no evidence that Uribe induced witnesses to lie and said that the prosecutorial fraud charge lacked legal support. It also ruled that wiretaps used in the case were illegal and violated his privacy. Prosecutors may appeal the decision to the Supreme Court. Uribe, who has maintained his innocence, was the first former Colombian president to be convicted. The case began in 2012, when Uribe accused Senator Ivan Capita of witness tampering, an investigation that ultimately turned against Uribe himself. Up next, your local news. Stay with us.
It is a new day for jobs and careers, and the skills needed to compete are rapidly changing. This is why more students are choosing Lewis University. Lewis prepares you for emerging opportunities in some of the most highly sought after fields. Higher education is the most crucial investment you can make in your future. Lewis provides you with a lasting education that will launch you toward success today and strong growing careers of tomorrow. Begin an education that will pay dividends for a lifetime. Learn more at lewisu.edu.
The Grow Institute featured Indigenous community advocate and author of The Land is Not Empty, Sarah Augustine. Christian Kluver has the story.
Grow Institute helps bring students together and recognize our differences, and today, repair systems of what was put together by early colonialism. It starts as a deep and honest conversation that brings students on this campus together. Students gathered inside the Darcy Great Room to hear author Sarah Augustine, executive director of the Coalition to Dismantle the Doctrine of Discovery. Her work challenges the centuries-old legal framework that allowed colonial powers to seize indigenous lands and calls upon faith communities to take action.
Christian communities have the ability, because Christians have been the primary beneficiaries of the doctrine of discovery, to use our educations and our positional power and financial backing to really lobby our own institutions to stand with Indigenous and vulnerable peoples.
Augustine shared how Indigenous communities are still impacted today, from federal land ownership of reservations to environmental exploitation and uranium dumping on Native territories.
So extraction is a big process that happens on Indigenous lands, especially because Indigenous reservations tend to be remote, and so environmental pollution happens in these remote areas without a lot of consequence.
Students say the discussion gave them a new perspective on history and a sense of shared responsibility for the future.
I know that, like, in my lifetime, certain things I probably won't see change, but being able to advocate for that and trust in the next generation to kind of finish the job is really hopeful.
The part that stood out the most to me is when it talks about the transportation systems and the highways and how that affects race relationships in the United States. It's one of those things you don't really think about being sinister in any way, shape, or form, but when you look at it at a more macro level, you kind of see something a little bit more sinister.
The 100-year plan really gives me hope that, you know, it's not all just on me. It doesn't need to be individual. You don't need that individual stress. You can have faith in generations prior and in the future, people that aren't even alive yet, that they'll finish the job and we will see improvement.
After her presentation, Augustine hosted a book signing for The Land is Not Empty, encouraging attendees to continue learning and organizing within their own communities. Today's event pushed students to think outside of history, but to think about a future built on awareness, action, and equity. For LUTV, I'm Christian Kluver.
Wow. Well, thank you, Christian. That was really nice to see, like, a different perspective of things I've never thought of. Like, for example, like the highway thing. I would have never thought of anything like that.
Yeah, for sure, Brandon. I think it's great when the Lewis University has talks like this. Again, I've kind of done stuff with Grows Institute before. I filmed a few packages for them. This is the first time that I think they've had, or at least when I've been here, a published author that's written a book as such. So it was great to kind of hear her perspective. Again, she really kind of dove into the early days of America and what colonialism, how it shaped for Native Americans and what, you know, her people have gone through. So it was great to kind of hear her perspective of what she thinks of how change could occur and what, again, she thinks about her mission. So it was a great time.
Absolutely. In other news, the Lockport Township Fire Protection District held a groundbreaking ceremony this week for a new training and maintenance facility in Crest Hill. The facility will include a 4-story burn tower, water rescue pond, hazmat training area, and vehicle maintenance garage. The project is located at 115 West Division Street and is expected to be completed in late 2026. Officials say the facility will improve regional response times and provide hands-on training for multiple fire departments. Funding came from the local tax, district, and capital improvement grants.
A Romeoville woman accused of stealing almost $136,000 from a Joliet Walmart in 2022 has been ordered to wear an electronic monitor. Prosecutors say the former employee failed to appear in court more than a year. She was arrested last week and spent 4 days in Will County Jail before being released. Surveillance footage allegedly showed her emptying cash machines inside the store. Authorities say the case is a reminder of how internal retail fraud can go unnoticed for months.
Road crews continue improvements along Illinois Route 7 through downtown Lockport this week. The project, which began earlier this year, aims to improve traffic flow and safety through the city's main corridor. Phase 2 of the channelization work includes new pavement, lighting, and pedestrian crosswalks. City officials are asking drivers to expect lane shifts and temporary delay during peak hours. The work is expected to be completed before winter weather arrives.
Up next, entertainment with Michelle Staw.
For over 50 years, WLRA has been on air showcasing countless students. As the first all-digital college radio station, Lewis University students are given access to industry-leading equipment. Equipment that commercial stations utilize, equipment that creates, and equipment that brings radio to life.
I like WLRA because it gives me the opportunity to get experience with news broadcasting and working with radio.
Stop by De La Salle 210 or at WLRA Radio to get started on your radio career.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
You know, it took 20 years and I got my third child who was 17 at the time.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
Bassist for Limp Bizkit, Sam Rivers, passed away on Saturday at his home in Florida at the age of 48. Emergency responders were called to his house for someone in cardiac arrest, but the cause of death still hasn't been confirmed. Rivers co-founded the band with Fred Durst back in 1994 and left in 2015 to focus on health issues related to liver disease. He made a comeback in 2018, and his last show with the band was just this past August. Florida officials have started a criminal investigation into Roblox, the popular online game. They say the platform isn't doing enough to keep kids safe from inappropriate content and online predators. Investigators claim some predators use Roblox's virtual currency to pressure minors into sending explicit images. Roblox is pushing back, saying the accusations are based on a misunderstanding of how the platform actually works. The company says it already bans image sharing, filters personal information, and is adding new age checking technology to boost safety. When Ozzy Osbourne passed away, superfan Billy Gonzalez was heartbroken, but he turned his sadness into a seriously cool tribute. Inspired by a simple skeleton costume he once saw, Gonzalez took it to the next level with a full Halloween display in his front yard. The setup features a skeleton with Ozzy's signature hair, sunglasses, a cross necklace, and even a bat in hand as a nod to one of his most infamous moments. He also included skeleton hands making the rock and roll horns and added a special touch by including a figure for Ozzy's wife, Sharon. Gonzalez says it's all about honoring Ozzy's huge impact on heavy metal and keeping his spirit alive. He hopes more people join the crazy train and start their own Ozzy Halloweens around Phoenix and beyond. Netflix has a new drama series on the way called Kennedy. It's based on the book JFK Coming of Age in the American Century, 1917 through 1956. The show will dive into the highs and lows of the Kennedy family, starting way before JFK became president. Season 1 kicks off in the 1930s, focusing on Joe and Rose Kennedy raising their 9 kids. Michael Fassbender will play Joe Kennedy Sr. A release date hasn't been announced. A California zoo had a surprise guest recently. A wild black bear wandered into the bear enclosure at the Sequoia Park Zoo in Eureka. The unexpected visitor came face to face with the zoo's resident bears who had been placed there after being deemed unfit for life in the wild. Thankfully, the wild bear was calm, curious, and just seemed to be stopping by for a visit. Zoo staff say it likely got in there by climbing a tree, but eventually wandered back out after workers opened a gate. The moment went viral, with social media users having fun imagining what the trespassing bear was thinking during its little adventure. Up next, Gianna Cicacia with health.
The Ray Strong Foundation was created about 4 years ago. It came after, as a couple, we had our first child. She was born at 24 weeks. She weighed 1 pound, 12 ounces. Then she proceeded to spend another 4 months in the NICU. That was the time that she should have been growing in the womb. During the 4 months, we visited her daily, and we got to sit down with the doctors and the nurses, and the amount of medical knowledge and what they can do to make sure that your child survives is amazing. And just the experience, it was nothing we could have ever been prepared for. So emotionally, we became very tied to the micro-preemie world. And that was when we decided to create a foundation with the goal of trying to give thanks back to the NICUs, the nurses, and then also provide any sort of emotional or financial help to other families that might experience what we went through.
We've had the opportunity to host over 40 events, celebrating micro-preemies, fundraising, and bringing awareness to micro-preemies and their families. When you get a chance, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, or our website at raystrong.org. Donate, and thanks again for all the support.
Thank you.
It is a new day for jobs and careers, and the skills needed to compete are rapidly changing. This is why more students are choosing Lewis University. Lewis prepares you for emerging opportunities in some of the most highly sought after fields. Higher education is the most crucial investment you can make in your future. Lewis provides you with a lasting education that will launch you towards success today and strong growing careers of tomorrow. Begin an education that will pay dividends for a lifetime. Learn more at lewisu.edu.
The CDC General Respiratory Illness Data Channel was last updated on September 26th. That was a few days before the shutdown began. Weekly federal reports on the flu, COVID-19, and RSV also haven't been refreshed in weeks, as virus activity picks up around the U.S. Experts say the pause in respiratory virus surveillance is an expected consequence of the government shutdown. However, some health information is still being collected by states and reported to the CDC during the shutdown. That information is often available to the public through state dashboards. According to the CDC's latest respiratory disease season outlook, the U.S. will likely have similar numbers compared to last season. When asked how the federal government plans to inform the public about the plans for the virus season, the Department of Health and Human Services said that the shutdown may delay answers. Nursing students at the University of Texas at El Paso are learning from patients who can talk back, thanks to new AI-powered mannequins in the College of Nursing. Nursing students are practicing real scenarios with mannequins that move, talk, and even show signs of illness. The mannequin uses AI to give students a chance to experience the pressure of real hospital settings without the risk. The mannequins can simulate a lot of things, from breathing changes to seizures and even eye dilation. UTEP says more AI mannequins will be added through grant funding. It has been a decade since landmark studies sparked new guidelines recommended peanut products to be fed to young babies in order to help prevent the development of life-threatening allergies. Since then, peanut allergies have significantly declined in the U.S., according to a new study. For decades, parents were told to keep peanuts and nut products away from children until the age 3. But in 2015, research caused experts to flip-flop. The current guidelines say introducing these foods in infancy can actually help prevent food allergy. A new study published in the journal Pediatrics determined that about 60,000 children have avoided food allergies since the guidelines changed, including 40,000 children who otherwise would have developed peanut allergies. Still, about 8% of children are affected by food allergies, including more than 2% with a peanut allergy. Parents should start introducing peanut products as soon as their baby is ready to eat solid foods. More and more people are using weight loss drugs and is costing employers big time. According to a new study of employer health benefits, so many people are using expensive GLP-1 medication. Some companies are reconsidering whether they should cover the cost. The number of larger companies covering obesity drugs soared to 43% this year, up from 28% last year. Among smaller firms with less than 1,000 workers, about 16% provide coverage for obesity drugs. GLP-1 drugs are used to treat diabetes but have gained popularity for weight loss benefits in recent years. Employers say that they may need to cut costs by limiting coverage to those with higher body mass indexes or requiring workers to participate in weight management programs. Up next, sports with Jaden Elmore.
For over 50 years, WLRA has been on air showcasing countless students. As the first all-digital college radio station, Lewis University students are given access to industry-leading equipment. Equipment that commercial stations utilize, equipment that creates, and equipment that brings radio to life.
I like WLRA because it gives me the opportunity to get experience with news broadcasting and working with radio.
Stop by De La Salle 210 or at WLRA Radio to get started on your radio career.
Wednesday, the NCAA approved new rules allowing student athletes and athletic department staff to be bet on professional sports starting on November 1st. The policy change was approved by all three NCAA divisions. Officials emphasized the move isn't an endorsement of sports gambling, but rather an acknowledgement of its growing presence in today's sports culture. The NCAA says it will continue to provide education and harm reduction resources to help student athletes understand the risk of betting. However, wagering on college games or sharing inside information about them will remain prohibited. The Lewis University women's bowling team earned 5 victories over the weekend at the Penguin Classic, hosted by defending national champion Youngstown State at Holiday Bowl. 4 of those wins came against Division I programs, helping the Flyers finish 13th overall and claim the top spot among Division II teams in the field. The highly competitive tournament was won by number 2 Nebraska, followed by number 6 Arkansas State in second, and number 1 Jacksonville State in third. Arkansas State's Carly Van Duinen captured the individual title with a 5-game total of 1,259, while 2 Jacksonville State bowlers rounded out the top 3. Lewis was led by Catherine Svela, who posted a strong 989 series, with Addison Rathman close behind at 940 and Nina Kick contributing steady scores throughout the weekend. The Flyers return to action October 31st through November 2nd when they compete in the Windy City Classic in Des Plaines. Lewis University junior libero Elena Gubera has been named the Great Lakes Valley Conference Defensive Player of the Week after helping lead the Flyers to win over Walsh and number 23 Grand Valley State. Gubera becomes the first Lewis player this season to earn a weekly conference honor and the program's first volleyball player recognized since Bella Ray received Offensive Player of the Week honors in November of 2024. Gubera also earned a spot on the Midwest Crossover All-Tournament after an impressive 3-match performance. She totaled 56 digs, 18 assists, and 6 service aces across the weekend, highlighted by 22 digs, 8 assists, and a 3-1 lead over Walsh. The Indiana native followed that up with 16 digs, 7 assists, and 3 aces in a sweep of Grand Valley State before adding 18 digs against number 14 Ferris State. The Flyers will look to carry that momentum into their matchup on October 25th when they return home to face UND at 3 p.m. at Neil Carey Arena. The Chicago Bears were back at Soldier Field this past Sunday, taking on the New Orleans Saints. The Bears' defense came out strong when they forced 4 turnovers during the game, which gives them a total of 16 takeaways this season. Quarterback Caleb Williams completed 15 of 26 passes for 172 yards and threw 1 interception. Kicker Jake Moody had a perfect day, going 4 for 4 in field goal attempts during his second game of the season. The Bears defeated the Saints 26-14, making this their fourth straight win and their first victory against New Orleans since 2008. The Bears will now hit the road to face the Baltimore Ravens this Sunday in Baltimore. That's it for this week in sports. We'll be right back after these messages.
The Raise Strong Foundation was created about 4 years ago. It came after, as a couple, we had our first child. She was born at 24 weeks. She weighed 1 pound, 12 ounces. Then she proceeded to spend another 4 months in the NICU. That was the time that she should have been growing in the womb. During the 4 months, we visited her daily and we got to sit down with the doctors and the nurses, and the amount of medical knowledge and what they can do to make sure that your child survives is amazing. And just the experience, it was nothing we could have ever been prepared for. So emotionally, we became very tied to the micro-preemie world. And that was when we decided to create a foundation with the goal of trying to give thanks back to the NICUs, the nurses, and then also provide any sort of emotional or financial help to other families that might experience what we went through.
We've had the opportunity to host over 40 events, celebrating micro-preemies, fundraising, and bringing awareness to micro-preemies and their families. When you get a chance, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, or our website at raisestrong.org. Donate, and thanks again for all the support.
Thank you.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
It took 20 years, and I got my third child, who was 17 at the time.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
That's it for today's news. As a reminder, you can always keep up with Lewis University Television Network on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and by visiting our YouTube channel. I'm Brandon Najera.
And I'm Christian Kluwer. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week.